Could Dewey Riley return for Scream 6? Let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
Hey everybody, what's up? KillJoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Today we're talking a little bit about Scream 6, doing an update video to see if maybe David Arquette could come back for the 6th installment in this franchise. It's also been a long time since I've been able to talk about Scream since there just really hasn't been any updates. But fortunately, David Arquette has said some pretty interesting things recently that have me pretty excited. Before we get into that, if you guys can like this video and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. Now, real quickly, I want to do something new that I don't typically do in videos and give you guys a recommendation. If you guys are fans of like the Scream TV series or maybe the Chucky series going on right now, or even Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, I have a show recommendation that is unfortunately flying under the radar right now that I am absolutely in love with. The Midnight Club on Netflix is coming from creator Mike Flanagan, who is directing and writing most of these episodes. The show is being described as, at a manor with a mysterious history, 8 members of the Midnight Club meet each night at midnight to tell sinister stories and to look for signs for the supernatural from the beyond. I'm not hearing anybody talking about this. I mean, this is relatively new. It just came out on October 7th to Netflix, but oh my god, it is so good. As far as the teen drama horror stuff goes, most of it doesn't really impress me. Like 90% of it is meh to me, but like this is that rare 10% that is really, really good. I'm only 4 episodes into it so far, but I am absolutely loving it. Every single character is super well written. Heather Langenkamp from A Nightmare on Elm Street is in this show, who is phenomenal in this, and it's like so deeply emotional. That's something that I don't typically get from these shows. I typically don't care about the characters all that much. This show is completely different. Nothing feels generic. Like, it feels like its own thing. It's a great idea for a show too, and it's got these little anthology ghost stories mixed into it. Like, every time someone tells a story, you actually get to see that play out, and it's done in all these different stylistic ways. It is so cool. It is a great idea for a show, and I highly recommend it. And if there's anything else I can stress about this, it's that Mike Flanagan does not miss ever. Oh my god, this guy is insane. So if ghost stories and like this teen drama kind of horror TV show stuff is your thing, you will absolutely love this show. Like I said, I could not recommend it more. Go check it out. I'm gonna do a full review of it on my page as soon as I finish it. All right, now getting into the Scream 6 update. Finally, I know, that has been on my chest for so long, and I've been wanting to talk about that for a minute now. That show is incredible. But seriously, let's get into this Scream 6 update, all about Dewey Riley possibly making a return to the franchise in the 6th installment. In a recent interview with Comic Book Movie, David Arquette discusses Dewey's brutal ending and what it's like to see the franchise move on without him. However definitive Dewey's death was, the star teases that the nature of the horror genre means that the door may still be open for a return. Arquette says, "I know it was really sweet to see the reaction of the fans. It was hard. It was a project I really loved being part of. They went off to do number 6 and I was like, oh, okay." It's hard. It's something that's really close to my heart. But I love how they handled it. I think my character had a really good role in Scream 5 and had a lot to do. That was really nice. We'll see. Who knows? Anything is possible. I mean, how many movies have Jason or Mike Myers been in? Not that Dewey's a killer, but there is a coming back to life element within these horror films. So how would we feel if Dewey came back after his very definitive death in that last film? Well, I feel like there's pros and cons to this that I want to weigh out here. There are some obvious cons, like it would retroactively make that scene in Scream 5 a lot less powerful, which is a big high point in that movie for me. I thought killing a legacy character was something these new people would never do, and they went there. I still think it's arguable that they had to kill Dewey to bring back the legacy characters. It certainly was one way to do that, but there was ways around it where they didn't have to kill Dewey. But we have had some of the writers talk about in the past during interviews that one of the highest points in the franchise for them was Randy's surprise death in Scream 2, which is why they wanted to kill a mainstay character in their first installment. It's understandable considering that they only thought Scream 2022 was their one shot at making a Scream film, so they wanted to pack it full of everything they wanted to do with the franchise. It does make me a little sad, of course. Dewey's a character I've basically grown up with at this point. I love all 3 of the mainstay Scream characters, but also on the other side of this coin, they could still bring him back. Like I said, it probably would retroactively make that scene not as impactful as it was the first time around, but look at what they're doing with Kirby Reed right now. They are bringing her back to the franchise, and most people are pretty happy with that. With that being said though, there is a big difference between Kirby's death in Scream 4 versus David Arquette's Dewey Riley's death in Scream 2022. Kirby just got stabbed in the side a couple of times, where we actually saw Dewey's organs fall out of his guts, and then he falls to the ground, and I mean, he's dead, man. I think bringing Kirby back is one of those things where you can kind of get away with that. That's whatever, that wasn't super definitive. We never saw her body get wheeled away into a hospital or anything like that, or to a morgue, whatever. With Dewey's death, though, there is just so much confirmation that yes, he is dead. I mean, there is no way they could bring him back, especially after that super emotional scene in Scream 2022, where Gale is at the hospital just super somber and like just knowing that she had lost her loved one. I think if there was still hope to bring him back and the doctors were like stitching him back together or something, that scene would have played out a little differently. I think that if they were to bring him back at this point, it would kind of ruin a lot of the things set up in Scream 2022. But could David Arquette come back for flashbacks to potentially tell some kind of new story or new angle to Gale's character for Scream 6? That could happen. And that may have been something they already filmed, because I do think if any film in the Radio Silence trilogy, which once again, not confirmed that they're doing a trilogy, but most likely they have a 7 coming up, I would imagine that they are going to be doing some kind of flashbacks for this installment specifically. We have Kirby Reed coming back, like I said earlier, and I feel like we're gonna have some kind of undeniable connection to Scream 4 because of her character returning. There's also been some set photos on the studio that they used that kind of resemble Kirby's house, so maybe we're doing some kind of flashback sequence to that scene particularly in Scream 4, and maybe we could see Dewey come back somehow, maybe with Gale Weathers. It tells something about their past together, because that is something that's really strange about Scream 6, right? We have Kirby and Gale in this movie together, but to my knowledge, I don't think they ever really even shared a conversation in Scream 4. So to have some kind of flashback scene where you actually see Gale and Kirby interact maybe at the hospital or something during the events of the ending of Scream 4, something like that could actually serve the story in Scream 6 and give it more weight. Because personally, I'd imagine that Kirby and Gale are going to be working together while all the new characters are doing something separate. That's kind of just how I'm imagining it right now. Obviously, I need a teaser trailer or, you know, some kind of a little more information to go off of before I can really say like, oh yeah, that's probably happening. This is just a theory at the end of the day, and the only thing we really know about Kirby at this time is that she survived the events of Scream 4 and is currently doing interviews with other people. So maybe she has actually had an interview with Gale Weathers, who had asked her a bunch of questions about that night. That could lead into some flashbacks where we see Dewey, Gale, and Kirby all in a scene together, and then it could surprisingly bring back David Arquette as Dewey for one final scene. This also isn't the first time the franchise has done something like this, i.e. Randy from Scream 3. I think that would be really fitting considering we're probably not going to get Sidney Prescott in this movie. It would be nice to have another legacy character, even if it was at the extent of a flashback. This franchise also has an obsession with connecting everything to the past, so this would be a perfect way to do that to something that was kind of unresolved from another film that we've learned in the previous movie. Now, depending on how they tell Scream 6's story, it may be unnecessary to show all of that, how Kirby got to the hospital and how she got stitched up, how she like actually survived all of that. It may be rendered useless to show a scene like that, but it could be important to set up some kind of new plot point in Scream 6 for either Gale or Kirby, or maybe even another character who's going to be in this movie, like our core 4 characters who were all in Woodsboro at the time. A big thing I love about a new Scream installment is that there is so much to talk about. It's so much to make theories about with this new movie. With an awesome new cast and a bunch of old characters coming back from the past, there is so much that they could do with this movie. It is truly an open sandbox, and anything can happen in Scream 6. I am so excited for Scream 6. I cannot wait for this film. I may be even more excited for this one than I was for Scream 2022. Now, do you think that Dewey could come back in flashbacks? I'm personally against this, but would you also be okay with him coming back to life at some point in this movie? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this brand new update on Scream 6. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. If you want to support this page further, you can support me on Patreon or become a channel member by clicking that join button on my page. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.